Hello and welcome to another episode of Get the Boots, the first episode of the year. I'm Stephanie, your host, the big hibernator. I'm very sorry it's been so long since the last episode, but I had to lay low in January. It's been so cold here on the US East Coast, and it's only now getting above freezing after weeks of snow and ice, and I don't do well in the cold and needed to stay warm and conserve my energy and more or less stay away from social media. I'm supposed to promote my memoir, Transcontinental Overload, but to be honest, I haven't even had the energy to do much about that, at least nothing too visible. Of course, I've been doing little things in the background, but yeah, I haven't felt like sharing that much. So here's my little marketing piece. If you haven't bought my book yet, please do. It's widely available, and I have put a few links for you in the show notes. If you have bought it but not read it yet, come on. Reading is easy. I've been told the book can be read in one weekend, so just please do me a favor and read it already. And if you have read it, please let me know. Give me some feedback, send me some questions, leave a review on Amazon, on Goodreads, wherever you've bought it. It would be really helpful if you could spread the word and let other people know where they can buy the book and why they should. Thank you. Moving on to today's episode. Have you ever thought, what am I doing with my life? I really need to make some changes, but I don't know how. I can't quit my job. I have bills to pay, but I know something needs to change. Well, my guest today might have some ideas for you. I'm talking to a true powerhouse of a woman, Ms. Kimberly Haley-Coleman, the founder and executive director of Globe Aware, a non-profit organization that leads and mobilizes volunteers for short-term service projects. And without further ado, here she is. I'm so happy also to be doing this, to be having this conversation today on a dreary January morning, where everyone is dreaming of other places, or people want to be anywhere but where they are.
Right.
Anyway, I was just talking about myself, but I think there was this point, and maybe you felt this way. Anyone will identify with this moment in life where you are maybe at work and you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? Am I doing the right job? I need a break. I need to rethink things. I need to pause, but I don't have any paid time off. I can't take unpaid leave. I'm stuck in this system. I need to pay my bills. I also don't want to take 5 days off and lie by a pool drinking margaritas. I want to do something that really helps me figure out what I want to do in life, that makes me change perspective maybe, or just jolt me out of my routine and my life as such. And maybe I really need a completely new direction in life. And so I'm super excited to have my guest here today, Kimberly Haley-Coleman, the founder and executive director of Globe Aware, a nonprofit that mobilizes and organizes volunteers for short-term service projects all over the world. Welcome to Get the Boots, Kimberly.
Oh, Stephanie, thank you so much for that and for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Let's just jump right in. Can you tell us, in a nutshell, maybe what it is exactly you do? I mean, I've just given a little intro, but to just give us an idea of what countries you are in, how long you've been doing this, and then we can talk about what made you come up with this idea and what your reasons were and how all that came about. And then we can go back into talking about your organization.
Well, great. Yeah, sure. So you did a great job of saying what we do, because we really do these primarily 1 week, highly structured service experiences all over the world. And it works like somebody going on a cruise. You go to the website, you pick the date and the country you're going to, and you meet 10 other people that are doing it. And you don't have to know anything else, because our coordinator is there getting all the materials ready and the tools and overseeing everybody who's doing it, all the food, the accommodations, all of that's set and in place. And what I really liked about how you opened this episode was it points to something that comes out of the experience that isn't necessarily what people go into it with. I think a lot of people think they're going to serve and to volunteer. Um, but when they get there, they realize that what they've done is put themselves in this environment where, the food, the architecture, the clothes, the sounds, the faith structures, everything is different from what they know, and including the work they're doing. It's not something that they know what they're doing ahead of time. They don't know the people that they're serving alongside or for. And by doing that, by dropping yourself into this short term, really intense experience, um, the big thing that's happening is all of those mind molecules changing, that perspective changing, that reconnecting to humanity um, in a way you didn't know you could, not looking at your screen. That's really the upshot of what happens, but it's really hard to say that. Just a few
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that up, because that's when you take yourself out of that workaday, everyday, gray cubicle, competitive dog eat dog environment, and you get out of your routine of going to the grocery store, work, school, whatever, what happens to you? And it's so hard. Look, going to the beach is great. Going to churches and museums in Europe, that's all wonderful.
It has its place, right?
It has
That's
its
what
place.
we need, and if we're lucky enough to be able to afford the flights and the accommodation, that's a great way also to for educating yourself and looking changing perspective as well.
Right. I look at teenagers today that are uh, looking at their place in the world relative to what they see in a feed, and either feeling unworthy or not as good or insignificant, as if they don't matter. And if you go and, our projects, they vary a lot, but let's say someone goes to our Guatemala program and they're installing a concrete floor in the home of a single mom, often 13, 14, 15-year old, who was living basically with walls made out of cardboard and no access to running water, and seeing how you do not have to be a brain surgeon or an engineer to make a significant impact in someone's life. You don't have to be an expert at anything to feel connected and understand that being a part of the
Mhm.
human fabric of the universe, that it doesn't take cataclysmic things to bring about, and to what that does to your heart and sense of empowerment. Uh, and so it seems unattainable, and I feel like I look all around, there's so many, I don't know if you saw Adolescence, that series, where I feel like there are a lot of signs that a lot of youth today feels that disconnection, and it's not just youth, obviously, but
Yeah, yeah.
and of course any of us at any point can and should be looking out for our neighbors with this big huge snow apocalypse that's coming,
Hmm.
that we should be looking out first and foremost for our neighbors. Plant a tree, fix a door, who needs help right around us. But as you said, to the extent that you have time beyond that or the means beyond that, what else can you do?
Yeah.
And so that
Yeah.
is exactly where we hook in.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, the reason that I jumped in like that, saying that it's kind of life changing, maybe for the person doing it, is because I feel like there is so much out there today. And you were mentioning teenagers, where, and especially in this country, where volunteering is so much part of people's lives. I have noticed as a European living in the US that it is a big part of society and what people do. But there is this element sometimes where it feels somewhat problematic. Very often, yes, it's part of family life, but it's also part of families' insurance that their kid will get into college.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
sometimes you have this where the reason to volunteer and to do anything is not so much
Right.
about really
See, virtue
experiencing.
signaling or required community
It is virtue
service, right?
signaling, and it's that sort of like, I can say I've built helped build a village in Guatemala, and now I can put that on my college application. and that's going to get me into a good college, and then I can go about my day and get back into the hamster wheel that I've seen my parents jump in, and so that is not really the kind of your kind of mission, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess you can't avoid dealing with people who have that approach, but I don't know, maybe this changes when they are actually there doing the work. And hopefully, you would think someone going through an experience like that will think, no, this is going to be part of my life.
Right.
This has changed me so much and so profoundly. I can't imagine not doing it.
Yeah. And, I would say because a lot of people do come on our programs with that idea that they're going to be serving, but then they
Mm-hmm.
realize that all the locals are faster and better at everything, right? So,
Yeah,
so
it's
they're
humbling, I guess. Yeah.
and we're doing everything. These are projects the locals have chosen, and we're
Mm-hmm.
doing it the way they want us to do it. And all the foremen on the projects, we're hiring them, so we're not replacing people's jobs. But so it really is a learning experience above all else. Yes, financially being able to pay for materials in a place where they may not have is important. But
Mm-hmm.
our volunteers are never as good at whatever we're doing as the locals are. And this is why people may go into it thinking they're serving, but they come out the other end of it realizing it is learning. And it's learning not just about, hey, this skill or this thing. It's learning what are the real beauties and real challenges in this community, in this culture that you may not be thinking about when you're at home. If you are in Guatemala and you're seeing that everybody in this community seems to be looking up instead of down at their phones, and they're spending how many hours a day with their friends and their family and their faith that we are not spending. Well, I could tell you that, but when you see it and you live it, it hits your brain differently. And then on the flip side, if one of our volunteers gets hurt, we can get them to a clinic very quickly, if they drop a brick on their foot. But you can very readily see that in these communities that if somebody has a heart attack, for one of them to have the resources to be able to get to a hospital is not very feasible.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a real challenge that, hey, if you're just going as a regular tourist, you're probably not going to see and really understand that. And I have to say, our staff, our coordinators that
Mm-hmm.
come from the community where we are serving, um, are the magic in all of this because they obviously know the communities very well and are working to make sure that the projects we're doing are things that are actually wanted and needed and done in the way that locals want them done. But they also know our volunteers. Most of our coordinators are in their 60s and have been doing this a couple of decades. They know what is
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling for volunteers, what kinds of food will be local, but things that they're excited about. And so it's our coordinators that really make that happen.
Yeah. And I guess that's really essential because in a way it's like you don't want the volunteers to come and teach them a lesson. Like,
Oh, yeah.
but at the same time you don't want to mollycoddle. So you don't want to make it like a soft volunteering or a
Yeah.
tourism in disguise.
Yeah.
So I guess that is a really essential part of this whole experience, that it's this finding that balance.
Yes. And we've found that there's a structural piece of this that so the coordinators, for example, every morning will begin at breakfast. In addition to having our regular orientation and going through the week, they will
Hmm.
start the day by discussing some cultural element that somebody new to that culture wouldn't know. So, for example, in Costa Rica on a Monday, our coordinator Federica will say, "Did you know that here in Costa Rica, we don't use traditional mailing addresses? If you're sending a package to someone in Costa Rica, you're going to be writing a paragraph describing, hey, it's 300 meters south of the White Church as you, and people, this is the kind of thing that fleshes out. Why is this? How is this? How does it work? Kind of so that people can have an opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
question what they think are the defaults of society or structure and how things work, to give an opportunity to look at your own life. What are the assumptions and defaults that you think that you just naturally think are better somehow, and yet again you have the opportunity to look at the another culture and say, hey, they may not have the latest iPhones, but they're spending a lot more time on the things that we say are important,
Yeah.
friends, family, and faith. In the evenings, we end the day with a reflective exercise. What is a kindness you observed today? What's something you were grateful for today? To help give everyone the opportunity that, hey, we've done this project that the locals wanted. Now, what has it done to us? What are we seeing and learning about this culture? The structural piece. We're obviously operating in places where we know people are going to want to go anyway. If people are going to go to Peru, they're going to want to see Machu Picchu. We incorporate that into our experience because we obviously understand that. People think they're going to come home showing all the photos of Machu Picchu and all that, but what they end up obviously coming away with is the time they've spent locally really working alongside someone and with the local community. That really is what stays with you.
Yeah.
You can tell people that, but until they've experienced it,
Yes.
it's really hard to understand how profound that is.
Yeah. I love that. And that's what kind of elevates this above like normal tourism. And I'm not saying, there might be people, travelers who really prepare well and want to learn culture and maybe even stay with families. There's all sorts of programs out there. And again, this is that's the part that appeals to me as someone who has moved countries, because there is so much that you learn by integrating into another culture, that it's all the you didn't know that you didn't know kind of part. You didn't even think that something like the address system would be different, because how would you know that it's different? And then very often, you assume things are different, but until you've experienced it, it's not really on your radar necessarily. And I imagine, talking about the US and having seen how people travel and how prohibitively expensive and difficult it is for people to actually go further afield, and how many people in this country don't even own a passport because they couldn't afford to go anywhere. And why would they, when it's easy to travel within the country? And it's just such a whole different mindset.
Yeah. Well, there's several factors there that I think we certainly have, we have a fear of not speaking other languages, and obviously news coverage and media, I think a lot of people just hear risk and danger, or they're thinking postcard views of places, beach in Hawaii, that kind of thing. And also a huge factor, in my opinion, is the very small amount of paid vacation that most U.S. citizens have, and which is fundamentally why our programs are so short and so structured. Talking to an Australian going to Peru for just 6 days, why would anybody do that? Because if you start out with a couple months of vacation every year, it's inconceivable. So we certainly fit a very specific niche for the busy working American who does not have 6 weeks to take or is past that window of being able to do the Peace Corps for 27 months.
Yeah.
There are so many factors, and I have to say, I suspect that the number of passports is likely to go down in the coming years, would be my guess.
Yeah. Yes, unfortunately. But then, there's the other part of what it is you see and you want from life. And there's this part of me that says, well, you can, if you're looking to help communities or experience different climates, you don't have to leave the country. You can find it all,
of course,
within the country. You can, and and people will travel extensively within the US.
Yeah.
But again, it's this, sometimes there is this, that you need a change of perspective. You need it for yourself. You just want to find out. And there's so many, I've come across so many traveling Americans, very big-hearted and very open-minded people who just want to experience other things.
Yeah.
When you're talking about not having a lot of paid leave, and wanting to experience other places. Was that what prompted you to found your company, or
Yeah.
can you
Well,
talk a
that
little
was
bit about that?
sure. Well, my background, both academically and in terms of just growing up, I had done a lot of travel. My an MBA in international business, a master's in art history, which was really about studying other cultures. I had traveled a
Hmm.
lot, and so I was finding myself. I was in the for-profit world, traveling overseas for work, and often found myself on location over the weekend. And having already seen the sights, what do I do with my time? And trying to use it in a meaningful way, looking for service opportunities and realizing that it was almost impossible. Everybody wanted you to serve if it was going to be long term, but otherwise it wasn't worth their time to pull somebody off of whatever they were doing to show you what's needed or to teach you how to do something
It
for a few
is
days.
almost
It
detrimental
takes a lot of
to
time.
the
It's
yeah.
detrimental. And I get it. And that's the fundamental reason people pay to volunteer, which, a lot of times the first
Hmm.
time somebody hears that, they're like, why would I ever do that? Well, when you see these local communities, you realize they don't
Hmm.
have enough money to put food on their own tables, let
Hmm.
alone host someone else. So you really need to be contributing, economically. So yes, that was a big piece of it. And so when I couldn't find anybody that would let me volunteer short term, made me want to do it more, and looking for places and areas where I could contribute directly, coming back, explaining what I had done, and finding that other people seemed really interested as well.
Hmm.
And thinking, well, gosh, I'm not the only one who
Yeah.
really gets something out of this. And it is different. If you're, you'll talk to high school students who've been in some project where they're someplace for 6 weeks, and it's much more casual and the soft skills, and they're out, playing with kids. So there's different ways of engaging in service abroad. There's plenty of churches that have done all kinds of work, and
Hmm.
people can, for people who are interested in engaging in service. There are lots of different. I did not grow up in the church, so I didn't have any sort of relationship like that, and we have no political or religious affiliation. We don't have any sort of conversion or proselytization that
Hmm.
happens with our organization. So, there's lots of different
And
ways of
I imagine this
engaging.
is also something, if as soon as it is some political or religious affiliation, that it's off-putting to people. So not
Yeah,
everyone wants to jump on board with something like that,
sure.
regardless of how good those programs might be.
Right. I mean, there's both out there, right? There's some people who that would be a reason they would want to
Yep.
do a project, and then
Yeah.
it's a turnoff for others. And
Hmm.
so, that's what I recognize, that it's all out there. And, there back in, I'm going to guess 2011 to 2016 or something, there were a number of organizations that, fortunately, there was a lot of awareness, a real light shone on organizations that weren't doing things responsibly,
Yeah.
putting orphans in direct one-on-one dangerous situations where bad things happened. Or you may be familiar with the term, white man saviors complex, where organizations were, people were picturing themselves as, superheroes swooping in.
Hmm.
Well, I'm sure that still exists, but fortunately, there's been awareness out there to where more people know what to look for, and then there were organizations through COVID that just couldn't survive. So this space of serving overseas in
Hmm.
your non-home country has really been through a whole bunch of
Hmm.
changes, and so I don't know what it's going to look like in the coming years. One big change we've seen is that a lot of employers have embraced this in a really interesting way. So that instead
Hmm.
of saying, for example, our company supports one organization and that's what we do, instead they're saying, hey, we will do contribution matching to your choice of
Fantastic. Yeah.
charity. And so in that case, so for example, we have a lot of volunteers now where their employer is paying half of their cost to participate. We're a 501(c)(3), and we also have Canadian charity status. Or they are allowing them, hey, they may get 10 paid days vacation and 5
Hmm.
extra to use for service.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're seeing trends where people are participating where they may never have thought to do this kind of thing, but because their
Hmm.
employer is supporting it and allowing them to, hey, I want to go do something where I'm helping, you know, mobility impaired people. I want to go and assemble and distribute wheelchairs to landmine victims in Cambodia. Or no, I want to help kids with special needs. Or I want, and so I love seeing that this larger diversity of how can I
Mhm.
hook into an area and really learn about it and give back.
Yeah, what an incentive. I think for an employee to be able to go to their boss and say, "Hey, I want to do this," and then the boss saying, "Hey, that will be a really good
Yeah,
experience. We can support you in this. There are
yeah,
ways to like the tax reasons. There's all these kind of
yeah.
things that an employer is fairly easy for an employer to do, but also to, I imagine, to be excited about maybe their employee gaining some
Right.
skills
I mean,
and
that's the goal here, that it's a win-win-win. It's a tax
mhm,
deduction for the
yep,
portion the volunteer pays for. It's a non-taxable benefit to the employee. It's great for the community. It's obviously great for the volunteer where they feel especially grateful for their employer. And particularly, I would say millennials, that generation really does seem to have good expectations. They're really looking for corporate responsibility in a way that employees 20, 30 years ago may not have been.
yeah.
I don't know how much they're able to hold a corporation accountable, but they're definitely looking and noticing and recognizing
Mm.
when those efforts are made. And I don't know what Generation Z, how that's gonna hook in, but yeah, it's definitely been a newer trend these last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like with the Generation Z especially, just because life is so different now and life has become so expensive that the idea that their parents had with like working the corporate job, earning the money, being able to buy the house and maybe the beach house, a car for each member of the family, those things in this climate are not necessarily attainable
Yeah,
and not even on people's radar. So I I'm guessing that a lot of the younger kids will be looking at more options anyway.
mm,
And I feel like with having the opportunity to do something for a week as a glimpse into what service could look like and what maybe for those people who are like, I really want to do this, I really want to work and maybe work on a bigger project and go to another country and really make a change and learn some skills, but I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know what it's going to be
sure.
like. How can I live like that? Can I What is it going to do to me? So
Right.
having a week as like a glimpse into what it
Yeah.
might be like is such a great thing. And I think this is what we talked about it earlier, a lot of kids are missing in their daily lives at the moment. The connection, they're getting away from the screen, the seeing how a different how family life is can be completely different to what you're expecting at home. And to have the opportunity to see that, but in a safe and organized environment. I mean, amazing. And for parents as well. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking my kid came and said, I want to go do this project. But your kid has never been outside of your your town or in terms of
Seems like
their
such a big
horizon
leap.
hasn't been. And then it's like, I'd love you to do that, but I'm really scared because
Yeah.
there's all these, and you mentioned some of the
Yeah.
the things earlier that can go wrong. There's so much that as a parent as well, where you're like, I'm not sure I like
Right.
this idea. So I just
Yeah.
I think this is such a great way. So can you talk us through what it would look like? And we're not talking about necessarily just, teenagers, although I'm sure that there's a bunch of teenagers that come in the program, but this goes all the way through to
Oh, we've had
retirement
2-year-olds
age
and 95-year-olds. Yeah.
because of that moment of I need to change something or I want to just experience something completely different. That can hit you anytime in life. But maybe, yeah, talk us through the process. If someone says, okay, I want to do this, they
Hmm.
find your organization, then how does it
Yeah.
work?
So it is just exactly the same way if somebody says, "Hey, I'm thinking about taking a cruise. I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm thinking maybe March or April." they open up a website for, I don't know, Princess Cruises, and they say, I'm thinking maybe Europe in March, and then they sign up. It's that way. They go to our website and they look through, we have 26 countries where we work. We're very heavy in Latin America, Southeast Asia, the African continent, Eastern Europe, and they sign up, and then we send them all the material. We have podcasts and YouTube channels that help people prepare. We also have a packet telling people, here's what you
Hmm.
pack, here's how and yet none of that is really necessary aside from any sort of entry requirements, making sure you have 6 months left in your passport. And if that we have a couple places where malaria medications are recommended, but aside from that, there really isn't anything. And I say that because when we have corporate groups come on our programs, so what they do is they'll contact us and say, hey, you don't have this date posted. Can we go on that date? So
Hmm.
the dates you don't see posted on our website, it's usually because there's a corporate group or school group or church group going on that date. And we will tailor the dates for them, making it shorter or longer as needed. But once they do that, if they say, hey, I want to go to Kenya in April, they'll sign up for that date. We give them all the materials. And the corporate groups that come, most of the people who show up don't read any of our materials. But that's what our coordinator is there for.
Hmm.
Is, they pick everybody up, they get them checked in, they go through, this is what we're doing. They're with them the whole time so that you don't have to be bilingual. We've got all of our staff there. So yeah, when you're picked up in Cusco for Peru, our coordinator meets you, gets you checked in, and at our first meal goes through what the whole week will be like. She'll tell you, hey, we're going to do Machu Picchu on Thursday. You'll be free by 3 p.m. every day. We're going to do these 3 to 4 planned but optional cultural activities throughout the week. And then this is a service project. And the next morning, she's there picking at breakfast, going through the cultural exercise. Then everybody gets in the van and we go to the work site. And that rhythm is pretty similar for several days in terms of when the work is,
Hmm.
when our free time is, but we have all the meals together and all of the cultural sites. And a lot of the cultural sites are designed to be experienced in a way that's a little less traditional. So
Hmm.
if we're doing a coffee tasting in Costa Rica, we go to the same family that uh, their coffee plantation has been at, and we go and we see what it's like to pick it, and we go through, we see how it's processed, and we drink the
Hmm.
coffee with the family that's been living there for years. So you're seeing the traditional tourist sites. They just tend to be less traditional consumer based
Hmm.
perspective, right? But so that's what we do. That week is made up of those three things of our service, our cultural activities, and free time. But it includes our meals and transport and all of them.
Basically, all you need to bring really is your willingness and a valid passport.
Yes,
And you already know that everything is taken care of.
right.
So you don't have to stress about accommodation and food and medical
Yeah, all of that's it, right.
treatments and transport or anything like that.
That's right. You show up. And people will worry about what to pack, and it kind of makes me shake my head when I think about it, because like if you're going to Kenya, if you have a couple of t-shirts and a couple pair of shorts and closed-toed shoes, really that's all you need. If you forget your
Yeah.
shampoo, you can buy it there. It's you really don't need anything. And what most people end up doing when they see, for example,
Hmm.
our South African, our Kenya programs, or Malawi are all great examples where when people see, while we do have needs here in the United States, you can be below the poverty line and have access to running water and flushing toilets, and you can be middle class in many of the places where we operate and have access to none of that.
Hmm.
And when you notice that, hey, look, there are kids playing soccer every day that have never owned a pair of shoes. Our volunteers will often leave behind whatever clothes
Hmm.
they had when they recognize
Yeah.
you were stressing over what if you were bringing
Yeah.
the right
Yeah.
stuff. If you had, any worry about what to bring is
Yeah.
misplaced worry. The bigger thing is, what we often see happen, we never ask, we see it happen. They'll end up going and buying soccer balls or a new net for things that aren't even on our radar for our project because they can see the need and
Hmm.
see how much it brings community together and what people enjoy doing. The volunteers end
Yeah.
up with their free time doing that. And, in terms of the rhythm of our programs on hotter locations, we always start early so that we're hopefully done with our work before it gets too hot. We'll aim for 6 hours of work, and over and over and over, what we will find is we come to the end of the project and volunteers want to keep working, or they'll come up with other projects, or they'll
Hmm.
work really fast and really hard. And the local communities are always shocked by it. They're always like, why are they still working?
Yeah.
Um, and it happens over and over because it's amazing. People will come with this
Hmm.
really productivity is on their minds, and we know it. And I have to say, this is one of the things that does. I do think our organization, it separates us from a lot of other organizations, is we know that the people who volunteer with us are coming from a background where productivity is first and foremost in their mind. So it's something that we're trying to balance because we're working alongside a local
Mm.
community. If we're in Costa Rica and it starts raining, the locals are going to stop working and have a cup of coffee. And the volunteers want to push through. Our,
Yep.
right.
That's what they're there for.
So we try and
I
balance that. Okay,
imagine.
we can
Hmm.
work a little bit, but let's also take 5 minutes and have a quick cup of coffee
Yeah.
because let's learn how they approach this and
Hmm.
why is that extra 5 minutes worth getting to know somebody. So uh, we
Yeah.
we our demographic, the people who volunteer with us, are coming at this with their own a set of expectations. And again, it's our coordinators that
Hmm.
really have just been superlative in terms of
Hmm.
figuring out how do you bridge the gap here so
Yeah.
that
So that
everybody's
was,
enriched.
yeah, my next question. So how do you find, how do you choose the places that your organization works, and how do you find your coordinators? Who
Yeah.
are they, and how do you train them? What what happens? How does all that
So I
work?
tell you, years ago, we would go and look in locations we knew people we were going to want to go to anyway.
Hmm.
Machu Picchu is an example. Cusco. We know people are
Mm.
going to go to Cusco. We know there's real need there. So we would go and talk to lots of different
Hmm.
grassroots organizations, looking for organizations that had already organized themselves around some identified challenge they are having so that they already knew what they want and how to do it. Maybe they're just lacking funds and some extra hands, right?
Hmm.
And that's actually so that was the starting point. Now we have a lot of organizations coming to us saying, "Hey, can you send us volunteers?" So when that happens now, we have our own set of criteria, right? It's got to be safe. We're not going to put people high on ladders or operating heavy equipment machinery. We're not Doctors Without Borders, so we're not going to be handling
Hmm.
bodily fluids or administering medication. We're not going to have kids alone with it. We have a whole list of things. And we don't go in war-torn countries. If there's been a big disease outbreak,
Hmm.
we're not in Darfur, Somalia, Afghanistan. Even if the need is real, we can't do it. We're not paramilitary,
Yeah.
right? And then we want to be operating in places that we feel are culturally interesting so that the volunteer is going to be getting a new perspective. A lot of people say, why don't you have programs in Florida? Well, Florida already has lots of great grassroots nonprofit organizations. So we don't need to replicate what's already there. So it's got to involve some kind of project that is genuinely helping a needy community, and isn't going to require super special skills. If there is some special skill required, we are hiring the locals to do that portion of it, right? So if there's any electrical wiring or
Hmm.
plumbing or all of that, and we do
So
hire
that is
local.
something that is part of what you do as well. You make sure that you put the people in place
So when people are paying
that
the,
can.
$1,600 for the week, yeah, it's a tax write-off. Where's that
Mhm.
money going? It's paying for their accommodation, modest accommodation, you know, low to mid-range. Yes, they have flushing water and hot water and electricity and all that, but it's not going to be fancy. It's safe, of course, but so it's going to pay for the food, the accommodation, the medical insurance, the in-country transportation, the project materials, and it's also paying for our coordinator and our local staff that are overseeing the
Mhm.
project. That's where the money comes from. So we have to make sure that, so they may say, hey, we've got this great project, will you help us? And then we have to say, okay, as long as it goes through all of these things, and then if we have all of that, hey, it met all our criteria, the project and the program location, and they've already organized themselves and know how they want to do it, then we've got to make sure there's a coordinator available that is somebody that can pull this through. And it really depends. It's varied from location to location where we get that coordinator. And many times it is the person who is really already involved in that grassroots organization. So it might
Hmm.
be the Women's Cooperative, one of the directors that's running it in Guatemala said, yes, she wants to do this and she can carry this forward. Or it might, so it really varies.
Yeah. So do you have, is it like local people, but
Oh, it's
sometimes
always
it's,
local people. It's
okay.
always somebody that lives there that comes from within the community. To me, if it doesn't, then we're missing the point here. It's got to be somebody who already knows and understands
Yeah. Makes
what's
sense.
important to the culture. It has to come from within. Yeah.
Hmm. And then I'm presuming that they also will have some training in how to like and expectations as well,
Yeah.
how
Oh,
to
we
deal
we
with,
have a whole
say,
program we go
mhm,
through, and then we usually have somebody from our home offices the first few times co-coordinate,
mhm,
so that. But yes, yeah. And when we have really large groups, which is not our normally these are groups of 10 to 15 people.
yeah,
But in the weeks that aren't shown on our website, we'll have 200, 250 people on site. And so we will have a coordinator for every 10 to 15 people. So we treat it, no matter how many people we have, we treat it as a bunch of smaller groups, because
okay,
otherwise you really lose the connection that you're getting with. So if we're putting in, instead of putting everybody all in one house, we've got, 10 people at this house, 10 people at that house, 10 people
mhm,
at that house. And when we're building a wattle and daub style homes in Kenya, we've got to first make the frame with stripped wood. And this is something that volunteers can easily do. And we're filling it in with this special mud combination, then putting the silt on the, and getting to see the different stages.
mhm,
But our volunteers don't know the moisture content that's needed for it to cure correctly. I mean, we hire locals that
yeah,
are there doing that. So it's a wonderful process, because again, I have to come back over and over to our volunteers are learning. If
mhm,
they were just wanting to, use money in an efficient way, hey, I'm going to send a check instead of getting on a
yeah,
plane, and it will buy more wheelchairs. And that is true. So if we only focus on is this sufficient terms of charity, um, that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is, hey, the first time you, Stephanie, give a wheelchair to a landmine victim, and you are looking in the eyes of a mother who previously had looked at her child thinking that they weren't going to have any mobility. And now you're looking at her eyes, and she's got a different view of the future of her child. And you've connected with her, and you've told her that she is important enough to you. And that time that you are spending with her, that connecting with humanity, is worth something too, not just money and resources.
yeah.
This is something different. And, I think we don't always know what we're going to get out of an experience.
Can you tell us about a specific story, maybe something you've experienced yourself or one of your volunteers, something that really led to some kind of internal change and transformation?
Yeah, no, I have so many. And what I've just been thinking about recently is, we have a lot of families and multi-generational people that go on our programs, and they don't know what their kids will get out of it when they go on this. And I know I mentioned earlier that feeling of connectedness and empowerment, but small things that happen, once I remember this kid, he was 10 or 11, and he was, we have to pump the water, bring it in buckets over to the work site to mix our concrete. And the first time you do that, you might be kind of sloppy about it. But when you're seeing children being bathed in this water, and you're seeing them boil the water to drink it, and the amount of effort it takes just to bring it over,
Hmm.
I remember this kid the very next day, his mother saying he was turning off the sink between brushing his teeth. He turned off the water between soap and his body up. Why do you keep turning the water up? And she didn't ask him to do it.
Yeah.
Somehow experiencing it and seeing that made a very big impact. I don't know if he's still doing it today, but it's the kind of thing that these big thought processes and, oh my God, what does it take to get water from here to there and to make it safe enough for me to drink?
Hmm.
This invisible privilege we have behind us. And again, this is where when people will say, why would you go help those people in Vietnam when we have, yes, I get it. We do have needs here. We do have people in there,
Hmm.
and you should start there. We should all be doing that and caring for our neighbors. Doesn't mean we can't also be looking at what's happening on other areas
Hmm.
of the planet, because it's our opportunity to learn
Hmm.
and to question what is important to us. And so that transformational, those things that happen, I mean, there's so many of them. There's so many transformational things that happen. Just this recognition of the things that we all agree are important to us. This idea of wanting our children to be fed and not hungry at night, and not hearing bullets go over their head. When you see real poverty, when you go to a township in South Africa and understand the challenges, it's not just not having fancy food or food, but the high likelihood of a fire, because all of the houses are connected and people are cooking on open flames, and there's a lot of self-medicating with rot gut liquor. So what wonder is there that fires are frequent and often fatal? And what is it like to live in an environment like that?
Yeah.
And how can we be helping one another not suffer like that? Um, so I do think the transformation that's happening, there's all different levels of it. Everything from, hey, the understanding the importance of water to what about my life is, am I doing in a robotic routine fashion
Hmm.
without even questioning if I should be doing it or if there is another way?
Hmm.
And a big piece for U.S. citizens, Americans, is how much little free time we have and what we're doing with it. I think a lot of people have this assumption that everything down in the U.S. is the best and the greatest, and there are certainly a lot of great things about our culture. But it shortchanges them of that opportunity to stop and go, well, are there areas that could be better? And if so, what are they? And it really seems to be a challenge to do that in our regular daily lives. And that's how you opened this program. And that was such a great way of opening it, because so many of us don't give ourselves that gift.
Yeah. I wonder how it feels, how people feel coming back then after a week of doing the program and then coming back and going back and being expected to fit back in.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, a week is not a long time, but I think it can be life-changing enough to A, struggle with what you're going back to, and then B, really wanting to make change. So I mean, do you get people who book repeatedly who
Oh,
come back?
I was just about to say we have I mean, look, I don't think we would have survived COVID if we didn't have such a loyal a set of volunteers that they tend to start in Latin America,
Hmm.
closer to home, where the time zone isn't as different. And then when they realize, oh gosh, this was really just signing up, and
Hmm.
how easy that you can drop into this. And then they tend to go further afield, then going on to Southeast Asia or Zimbabwe on a game count. And um, so one of the main reasons that we keep adding locations is not because we really care about having more flags on a map. It's
Hmm.
because our volunteers are wanting to keep adding more to their cultural repertoire in terms of
Hmm.
understanding. And so really, and it's our latest programs were Bhutan and Zimbabwe. And that's really the driving factor is how can we make sure we're continuing to provide these new experiences so that again, and people think service, we even use the word service because it's what people know, volunteering, I
Yep.
wish there was another term that
Hmm.
meant that was something that people recognized and understood because again, I actually feel it's and I'm not ashamed to say this. I feel like it's a beautifully selfish thing to do. And that's why it's sustainable.
But it's both ways. There's a service that happens to you when you do that.
Yeah. Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, this sounds really kind of presumptuous and but I do feel like there is that two-way experience.
Yeah. I would actually say it's the volunteer that's getting the bigger
Hmm.
change, the bigger thing, and we really struggle with how to communicate that quickly.
Yeah.
So and fortunately, when people it's the thing that happens when big corporate groups come. People who are just showing up because somebody had said, "Hey, our group's doing it," because it really happens both ways, where a group will go and do one large trip together,
Mhm.
or where people are using their contribution matching and just signing up and going on separate programs. But the bigger groups, when they show up and they don't even know what they're in for,
Yeah.
and then they keep coming back. Those I actually feel like I really live to see that because I know what it does for them. They don't even
Hmm.
know what it's gonna do. They have no idea. They just
Yeah.
show up, you know, and that's been really affirming for us.
Oh God, I imagine yes, for in a company to go with your co-workers and to go on an experience like that. I yes,
Yeah.
be amazing. I just feel like this is the journalist in me to be coming along and documenting it,
Uh-huh.
the change. I mean, I guess people do that anyway. People probably write about that. Do you
Oh,
have any
I'm amazed
experience
that
with that?
I tell you what blows me away is we have when corporate groups come, they'll often have a social media person, somebody with a drone, somebody with
Hmm.
they're getting all of it.
Yeah, and then
Yeah, they're very sophisticated in a way we aren't.
that's where it could be problematic. Maybe virtue signaling and all that. But of course, you also understand that it's part of the experience to share it and want to share it and talk about it. I mean, it's got a so
Sure.
it's a positive thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I really see it in both ways, right? I mean, so somebody might call it virtue signaling because it's a photo of
Mm,
them doing something good. And there's really no way around that. So it may be considered virtue signaling, but it also is just sharing, hey, we did this great thing. We felt really good about it. We loved it. We had
yeah.
fun. So
Well, and to
follow
open people's
through.
eyes and say, hey, it's easy to do this.
Yeah.
It's really easy to do this, and you don't have to. It's safe, and like we said earlier, it's everything is taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no way to eliminate all risk. If we've seen a couple
Mm,
iPhones stolen over time, somebody, will twist an ankle or get an intestinal thing every now and then. There's no way to eliminate all risk. We obviously do everything we can to keep
mm-hmm.
everybody safe, but yes, it is a pretty controlled environment, and yeah, and and again, that also limits where we can go because of that.
Yes, I imagine, and places change because of
That's
political
right.
climates and events and well,
Yeah.
natural
Yeah,
disasters and
we
things like
had a
that. I mean,
program in China until COVID and that one never reopened.
mhm,
And it's not so much a safety issue as much as a change in interest in going, which what I would, anyway, it was a
mm,
surprise
yeah,
that things changed. There was a headspace that changed around it. So yeah.
yeah. So do you travel and like scout locations? What's your role? Obviously, you're the director, but how much do you get to travel?
I am usually on maybe 10 trips a year.
Hmm.
And I'll tend to go if we have a really big group. So that if we have like 15 coordinators, I'll go and help coordinate the coordinators. That tends to be why I'll go. And then usually when we have a new program, I won't go on all of them, but I have, and I used to go on a lot of those first few to be with the coordinator. Yeah, but I tend to do less of that now. And
Yeah,
most of our coordinators have been in place for a very long time. It is something that I think distinguishes us from a lot of other programs is I would say the age and experience of our coordinators. We don't have really people in their 20s and 30s, which sounds so strange, but we
yeah.
don't.
So who's been your youngest and who's been your oldest volunteer?
Oh, we've had people bring like 1-year-olds and seriously, their grandparents and great grandparents. I don't think we've ever had a newborn, but we've had kids that have just started walking and people in their 90s.
Hmm.
Where really the limiting factor is more if somebody has a breathing issue. We think they really need to talk to their doctor before going to a place like
Mm.
Peru that's at
Yeah.
altitude, or if they have any difficulty regulating their body temperature for whatever reason, they need to talk to their doctor before going to a tropical location. And if somebody is mobility impaired, unfortunately, a lot of our locations aren't really good about having
Mm.
ramps and things like that. So those tend to be the limiting factor more than age.
Yeah. Well, it just sounds exciting. And I'm gonna have another look at your website as well.
Oh, good, Stephanie. I hope we see you on one of these soon.
I would love to. And I was just talking to a friend this morning who I told her about you and our conversation, and I could just see her it's going like, woo.
Oh, good.
And because I find that and I know I'm not talking just about myself, but there are so many people who reach this point in their professional life, in their personal life, where they just feel like I need to change something,
Yeah.
or the frustration with your environment and your maybe this country, your situation in it, and where sitting by the pool for a
Right.
week drinking cocktails is maybe not cutting it. So I've got two more little questions for you to wrap up, unless there is anything else you want to add.
I am just so grateful that you're giving me this opportunity to chat with you
Oh,
about this. So
but this is, I know this is hitting a nerve, and I know a lot of people are interested in this sort of thing, but don't know how to start or where to look. Because, and you mentioned a lot of organizations earlier, there is a lot out there, but it's some of them, it's just scary because you
yeah,
look at it and then you have to make a commitment for a few weeks, and not everybody can do that. People don't know that this
yeah,
exists. You can try this and it can fit into your current life, and then it can open your mind to maybe making some changes, or just keep doing this as well. So yeah, I just like that I can spread some awareness, and then obviously I'm going to put all the links. You sent me plenty of links, YouTube and everything, and people can educate themselves on and find out more and how to contact you and all that. But yeah, so I just want to ask you, question one is, what is something that makes you laugh every time you see it or hear
well, I
it?
tell you,
Is there anything?
our dog died a year ago, but she would just looking at she just finding her the ways she would sleep, but all and so now this is so terrible after talking about screen time, reels about dogs. When I'm having a bad day or something happens on the news, I'm like, up, I need an Instagram reel showing a dog doing something silly. So strange,
Yes.
but I really do.
Fabulous. And then my very last question, are you learning anything right now? Are
Oh,
you learning anything new?
so it's interesting. I really love podcasts, and I work out a lot, but um, and I'm kind of terrible. I should when I'm doing my yoga, I really shouldn't listen to anything,
Oh, I'm
but
the same. I love yoga, but I can't do it without something
uh,
else.
and so I've been listening to, and I what I've been trying to do. And this is going to sound awful too, is learn more about AI, just so I feel like I know what's coming and what's happening. And I've been listening to podcasts about AI, so that's something that I'm trying to get a better handle of. I wish I could tell you I was, somehow revisiting Latin America 13th century literature or something, but
Yeah. No,
I'm
I
not.
get it. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I mean, there's so many more things I could ask you, and I would love to ask you about the program. But this is, I think, a great glimpse into what it is you're offering. And yeah, I look forward to checking out your website. And yeah, you might see me on a future trip. It just sounds amazing. And I like the idea that you can do this with people, maybe a friend or a family member. This is very exciting.
Well,
Yeah.
Stephanie, thank you again for having me. I really did appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Great. Thank you. And yeah, good luck with this weekend. We are both facing a possible snowpocalypse.
Yeah.
You in Texas, I'm on the East Coast. We'll get through it.
Wow. All right. Yeah. Good luck. I'm planning on not leaving my house for a few days.
Same. Same here. Same here. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Take care.
Well, that was certainly a lot of food for thought. I hope you found this conversation as inspirational as I did. I'm so fired up about this organization. I will absolutely check out the GlobalWare website for destinations and projects, and I hope you will too. Thanks again to Kimberly for talking to me and providing all this information. I think it's so good, especially at this time, to be thinking about making some changes in one's life and about how we can make the world a little bit better. And that is it for today. Thanks for being here. Remember to subscribe to this podcast, share the word, let me know if you're interested in being a guest. And of course, let me know if you've read my book. Purchase links are in the show notes. Take care, stay warm, and see you next time.